Fourth guy there in Cleveland for Baker Mayfield.
He and Antonio Callaway going to be battling it out for that.
I believe they're going to have one of the best offenses, Nick, in the NFL. It's not hype, Colin Cowherd. You got that?
Take that, Colin.
Yeah.
Nationals Braves, Trey Turner. Superb diving stop up the middle. Nice throw for the out.
By the way, speaking of Colin, I'll be on with him at 12:30 Eastern today. This is a great play by Trey Turner. Look at this stab. That's the position I want to play.
Yeah,
second base.
Okay. I'm more worried about the pitcher. The pitcher got bad fundamentals. That's why he almost got hit.
You're worried about this pitcher.
Oh!
Photographer almost got taken out by the first pitch at the Royals-White Sox game.
A little rivalry. This is Sarah's White Sox against my Royals. Not a lot of people showed up for this rain-out makeup game.
Now, this is a situation where she was the employee of the month and was awarded the chance to throw out the first pitch. Now, Sarah, do you take that away from her? Because she's not a good...
She's an internet sensation. We're talking about the White Sox on First Things First. Would we be doing that otherwise?
I don't think we talked about the White Sox since Obama.
Right.
That's true, see?
You might be right.
Moving on to the Oakland Raiders. They signed Richie Incognito yesterday in an attempt to bolster the offensive line. When asked about Incognito's troubled past, GM Mike Mayock said, quote, you can't have all Boy Scouts. CC, what's your reaction to the signing?
Well, first of all, Mike Mayock, you need to get that Boy Scouts thing correct, too, because the Boy Scouts was tough. I tried to join the Boy Scouts. I lasted about 30 days. They went on a camping trip. That camping is overrated, okay? So don't be trying to act like, you know, Boy Scouts is being a bad thing. That's the only thing I haven't done. Yeah, I couldn't. I was not successful. Yes, but this is the truth about an NFL team. And I've been under the same theory for almost 30 years, over 30 years. I read it in Bill Walsh's book. Bill Walsh, the great orchestrator, San Francisco, West Coast offense, and a great orchestrator as far as human beings, put human beings in a spot to be able to win. He said you can have 5 bad guys on a 53-man roster. So when you go up and down, because you're right, you're going to have some guys with some shaky past. This is not your normal work environment where you look at your resume and be like, wow, man, I've been going to private schools and everything. I've been one of the top as far as in my class and everything. How all the rest of these people get here? Well, they got skill too. And some of them happen to be beating up people and doing other types of things. So I'm not shocked by any NFL team, the things that they would do if they think you can help them. But I'm concerned is because I like the Raiders when they were tough. I played against the Raiders when they were tough. But right now, because I don't believe their coach is tough. Because people say, oh, I mean, you put together your roster, the people take on the characteristics of their coach. Now, the coach acts tough. He acts like he's a disciplinarian, but I don't think he's a disciplinarian. So to me, until I see that type of personality, so I believe there is going to be a problem. You can only have so many people on your team that they're selfish and they are consumed by everything that's going on in their world, and they're not going to sacrifice everything for the team. You can only have so many volatile people in the locker room. You can only have so many guys that are going to get questionable penalties game after game. And also, you can only have so many guys because Richie Incognito, I can guarantee you in training camp, is going. Who's their linebacker they signed this offseason, Nick?
Vontaze Burfict.
Oh, I can believe they're definitely going to be fighting in training camp.
They now have the 2 worst guys in football.
So now, as I try to put this team together, because one thing young players don't realize, when you come to training camp, you're not on the team. We're not teammates. We on the opposite side, because I'm trying to win a spot. So in trying to win a spot, you know what I got to do? I got to bloody this guy's nose. And you can believe it's hard to put together everything that they have in all the chaos in training camp and believe that, oh, this is a championship caliber. So don't forget the opposition. Denver, Kansas City, and the Chargers. So for me, this is not the group that I would put together to beat them.
Well, listen, you mentioned 5 guys. I didn't know Bill Walsh had written that, but it's smart, and it's in line with something that I believe for a long time, which is 53-man locker room. You're going to have about a 6 guys that are Bible study, home every night as soon as practice is over.
Yep.
About a 6 guys that are not necessarily going to Bible study, and they're going somewhere else right after practice is over. And then you've got guys in the middle, a lot of whom are young guys, a lot of whom are finding out who they're going to be as professionals. And if you have a team that's got 10 to 12 guys in the Bible study, then all of a sudden more of those, that 10 to 12 becomes 14 to 16, becomes 16 to 18, because that becomes the powerful group of the locker room. But the other thing works the same way. It's what happened in Cincinnati in the early 2000s. You had too many above the threshold of edge guys, and then guys that maybe wouldn't have been edge guys were like, well, that seems fun. That seems to be the popular clique, and now you've got 12 to 14. Now you've got 14 to 16 edge guys. But if we were listing on NFL rosters, 50 guys times 32 teams, about 1,600 guys, the two guys with the absolute shakiest rap sheets, the Raiders might have gone out of their way this offseason to employ them both. Vontaze Burfict is a menace, is dangerous, and it could really, really hurt someone on the football field.
Almost ended Antonio Brown's career.
And could have ended his life. I mean, he is, and has been that way since college. Richie Incognito got thrown out of Nebraska, essentially. He left after being suspended indefinitely, then got thrown out of Oregon. And we know who he is. We know he uses racial slurs against teammates, against trainers, against opponents. We know that he has had real bouts with what I would consider psychiatric issues and what he has considered psychiatric issues.
Yes.
Up to and including in the last year. I mean, here's the latest thing on his rap sheet. Arrested for threatening to shoot employees at a funeral home while making arrangements for his father. He had 2 handguns, 3 rifles, and a suppressor. That's a silencer. Employees said Incognito wanted to, quote, cut his father's head off for research purposes and then walk through the funeral home punching caskets and throwing things. There's edge guys and there's maniacs. And the idea that John Gruden would lean into this, like, we already think the Raiders might have a little dysfunction. Well, let me sign Richie Incognito, who didn't even play football last year. I mean, it's not, he at one point was a really good player. It's going to be year 15, and he was out of football last year. You don't need him. You don't have to have him.
And it's on the backdrop of who went out the door. Amari Cooper. I know Amari Cooper. I know his mom. He's from the tough streets of Miami. When he was deciding he can go to any college in the country, he said, Coach, I want to go to Alabama because I know it's best for my family. I know I got to go away from Miami to get away from so I can learn about life. And Nick Saban's the best teacher. He is a great human being. Khalil Mack, another great human being, a guy who made himself. He didn't have a whole bunch of Division I offers, made himself into All-American at the University of Buffalo, and then in one of the best defensive ends. A great locker room guy. So it's not just like the Raiders are just going back to this, man, the Raiders image and everything. No. They let some good guys go out the door, decided we're not going to pay them, and they allowed these other guys to come and say, yes, you are a part of the Raider family.
But didn't they say they wanted to build a foundation with high-character guys? I mean, why do you go out and do this, especially a guy like Incognito, who first said he was retiring back in 2017, and now that he wants to play again? Why, if you're the Raiders, would you even give an opportunity like this at this point?
That's one thing that's been consistent with John Gruden, because I believe that John Gruden right now is better at doing media than he is at putting a team together. He hadn't been in the NFL locker room in 10 years, and I know guys that played for John Gruden before. And he tries to act like a disciplinarian in the press conference, but he doesn't run a tight ship like that. So the messaging points are not consistent, and it's just hard to build a championship atmosphere with that type of inconsistency. And I'll just say this for Al Davis. Al Davis will pick you up on the side of the road. I don't care what you have done. You could have committed a crime. You could have all kinds of things. But for the Raiders, they were good players. They weren't bad players. Al Davis wasn't just picking up guys with questionable character who couldn't play. No, he had a bunch of renegades, but they were good at playing football. And they weren't the most penalized teams all those years.
And again, it is one thing to recognize it's pro football. It's not professional tennis, and you're going to have more guys that are a little. You maybe wouldn't have them babysit your kids, but I really do believe the Raiders have the top 2 draft picks of crazy, and I don't. And you didn't have to, and I don't understand it. And you're right. Vontaze Burfict, Richie Incognito, that's coming at some point.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know who's breaking it up.
Oh, it's going down.
Hey, you got tough guys on a football team. I don't know who wants to step between those two guys.
Coming up, is Kawhi Leonard the best player in the finals? That's next on First Things First. Nice little rap sheet.
Oh, my God. I left off.